I've talked so much about this book to my friends and family while reading it that I almost have fatigue and no thoughts left to share. But I know that's not entirely true because every time I look at this book and every time I pick it up, I feel the sheer weight of the pages as containing something valuable. I'm not sure if that's a grammatically correct sentence, but today I have storage space and I thought that I would talk about this book before I forget about it and grow old and get dementia and die. So, the reason I picked up this book was because of a lot of Alyssa Liu discourse that was happening on the internet. And I saw this tweet which recommended this book in order to develop her mindset. Now, I had seen other cover versions of this book, which were pretty, and I'd seen and saved them on Pinterest, but I really didn't have any particular intention to read the book. It was just one of those books of all time that maybe I get around to at some point. If I spotted it in an old bookstore, maybe I'd flip through it and consider buying it. Then I just bought this book. I don't know what it was about. I just bought it because I liked the cover and I was moved by that Alyssa Liu tweet. Alyssa Liu as a figure really motivated me this year. She suggested to me that I could derive joy from the work that I do. And there are lots about what we have to say about Alyssa Liu that I don't like. For instance, as a culture, we tend to praise how effortless it seems that she is who she is. There is an emphasis placed on how she was able to succeed because she just stopped trying so hard and, it should be effortless. And I feel like that idea of effortlessness is something that we already demand from women too much. And the discourse around Alyssa Liu just emphasizes that further to me. This book itself was not what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting it to be so academically inclined. The writer is a Jungian psychoanalyst, and it seems also a historiographer. And primarily, she seemed to me like somebody who has spent her life studying literature. I really enjoyed this book partly because it brought together so many impulses that I don't see happen in a book of this kind, or any book really that I read so far. It is really interesting to read something so-called feminine and spiritual written from such a methodological lens because it makes you take what is being said seriously. The most beautiful light is coming through the window. I'll show you. And then I'll push you back. Look at that. That's so pretty. So I started reading this book and it took me a few months to finish it. But it was definitely worth the read. I've heard people say this is the kind of book they read really slowly. I wish that there were parts of this book I'd taken my time with, and one of the reasons I'm recording this video is because I feel like I don't want to forget everything I learned in this book because I've been kind of sluggish lately. And then I was flicking through this book to find a particular passage to send my friend who's going through a really tough time. And there's a passage in this book about the importance of crying. And I was trying to find that passage, and instead I chanced upon all these passages about how when women are undergoing a spiritual famine, they tend to overcompensate by a desire of a sexual or physical nature. And I really related to that because that's what I felt really for the past few days. I felt hungry. And this book seems to just be full, really, chock full of wisdom in that way. It feels like I can identify with all of these stories. And sometimes a stretch, like, especially towards the end of the book, there were certain stories I didn't really like, and I felt like it's too long. But then I was thinking, why do books have to be short? Why do books have to get to the point? Like, must every book be under 300 pages and get to the point? Like, can't a book be like a person, a particular kind of person with their own, like, idiosyncrasies. Why does a book have to be to the point? I don't think it has to be. So, I appreciate that about this book. It had real character. Something people criticize about this book is precisely that it's idiosyncratic and it has character. Like, it's just sort of full of purple prose and metaphors. But that is one of the reasons I found this book so engaging. It kind of reading this book, it kind of read to me the way that I talk, which a lot of people I'm sure find insufferable, but I enjoy, and so do my friends. And I enjoyed this book a lot for that reason, because of its way of speaking, its ability to be poetic and theatrical, and then have those impulses alongside its sort of like analytical parts as well. I'm not going to summarize this book for you because that's not really what I'm trying to do with making these videos at all. If you want to know about this book, you can Google it. Or do whatever you want, actually. I'm not going to show you the back. You can do what you'd like. It's your business. Between you and Clarissa. I'm not going to say her last name. So this woman wrote this book, and one thing that this book did for me is that it really encouraged me to be sort of confident and ambitious. This book really encouraged me to take on challenges and to not slaughter some of my finest impulses. So a few months ago, I read The Female Eunuch, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, by Germaine Greer. And that book is kind of what started my journey into being a wild woman, you could say. And I started reading that book, and halfway through, I suddenly realized, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot, being disobedient to the patriarchy. And reading this book, I saw that there's real fun in being disobedient to the patriarchy. What Germaine Greer does is she made me angry and she made me laugh. And then what this woman did is that she taught me how fun and how useful that anger is. Not just to condemn men or other people, that's not really her aim in this book. It's more like it can help you lead a more satisfactory life. And that is like how I felt reading this book. I felt satisfied. I haven't felt this engrossed reading a book in a really long time. But reading this book, especially in those early days, when I really got into it, I was reading this book pretty much all the time. I was reading it in my room after my class. I was reading it in bed before going to sleep. I read it on the treadmill, and it fell a bunch of times. But this book was really good, and I'm really now glad that I own this particular edition with this cover, and I don't want to let it go. You know, it's full of like annotations and things, and I certainly hope one day I have the patience to return to this book. But it was just really enlightening. And one thing I kept thinking constantly while reading this book was that, wow, this was written without AI. Like, this is what people are capable of. Human beings are capable of producing books like this. They're capable of being so articulate. Every sentence in this book, every paragraph, it just seems to me is just like, it's very well written and it's very well researched, and you can tell that this woman had, I'm guessing this woman had to have had read many books and thought a lot to come to these particular set of words and to know to use them and to know their power. This book is just it's so wise is what it is. Like, I wanted a book like this a while back, and I didn't know what to search for. I wanted a book that was like wise and witchy like this one, and this is precisely what that book is. It's wise, it's witchy, and it's full of all these questions. There are all these questions that I've marked in this book that I think would be pertinent to think about and to journal about. So I'm going to try and do that. I read this book, and because I read it in pieces and I just finished it a few days ago, I kind of have forgotten some of the main takeaways I had. If I had been recording my thoughts on this book as I went along, I would have so much to say, and it would be like the most rich commentary possible, maybe, and it would be a very long video, but that is not the case. So I will just tell you what this book did for me generally. Firstly, it taught me to be disobedient, to defy, and that defiance can be a profound form of joy. That your soul will rest better when you're just like a bit of an animal and you go after what you want, and that like there are lovers out there who not only tolerate these qualities in you, but they celebrate them properly, and those are the people you want to be around. Specifically, this book taught me that there are people out there and influences out there which can constrain you and make you feel like really dull inside, but you have to like get away from them. I started reading this book and then really resonating with the book when I was cutting off hair care, and there were all these parts in the book where the writer talks about how the people who want you to just kind of like play it cool, play it small, not aim too big. And this book kind of motivated me to aim big and to devote myself to like big things and to make sure that my company reflects like people who are devotees. Um, Another important thing that this book taught me is that there's something that you lose when you don't do this, when you are obedient, and when you do give up, like your fine impulses, there's something you lose. Like you lose your creative energy for one, you lose the ability to feel joy, and at parts of this book it feels kind of apocalyptic. And one thing about this book that I was really struck by was how it's like not an instruction manual, and she acknowledges this at some point in the book as well. I think towards the end, she doesn't give you any instructions. She just like points out the problems to you. And for a book of this nature, again, that's like a deviation. I would say this is like kind of self-help. Um, I'm not sure where the genre is. It's like it's really hard to like pinpoint where in a library you'd want to place this book, because on one hand it is like very much self-help. It's helped me certainly, but then also it's like it's a literary endeavor, and it's also a book that combines like the impulses of the literature major and then the psychoanalyst together in ways that are very powerful, and then marries that with the sort of wooey, new agey spiritual stuff that I personally really enjoy. And I managed to do all that while remaining, very robust. And I take it seriously. I took this book seriously, and I think that anybody who reads this book should also take it seriously. I really wish I could tell you what I thought about this book, because it's just full of quotations. I'm sure when I go through it again, there's going to be so much more to say. But right now, that's what I think about this book in this particular sort of time. And I'd like to maybe return to this book, as I hope women return to their ferocious sort of like natures. So alongside ferocity, I would say the last thing that this book taught me was the importance of creative energy, the importance of making things. And I guess I'd gotten kind of caught up in the success of creative projects, but this book kind of reminded me that women, or I, or whatever you want to call it, whatever I embody right now, is someone who's creative, and that she wants to make things and she can make great things, and it'll be good for the world, it'll be good for herself, and that might be one of those things that make you happy. So that's certainly what I'd like to do with this book. Another fantastic thing this book does is sort of create a female hero myth. It creates a grandeur to being a heroine, and I haven't seen that with any work about women ever in my life. So it's really nice to have a hero. This year, I'm realizing lots of heroines have been presented to me. This book has taught me so much. Like really, the word teach comes to mind. It's very instructive. Like your pain can teach you something. This book seems to suggest. You have something to teach others. The importance of having a teacher. All these things like that I think are important. Like they find speech in this book, and I really enjoyed it. It made me feel like a lot, and maybe its influence is waning, and I don't want to forget, but it really is a book that encourages you to like forge your own path, especially as a woman. I've never felt like a book written for women was so human. This book is just a feat. I really liked it. The stories were interesting. The analysis was good. And it's just like, it's a very grand invitation to inspect your life, come up with something. I wish I could summarize the book for you, but I can't. It's just lovely. And I'm gonna journal out some of the questions the book presented to me.